Hi everyone. This is going to be a video about Eric Clapton, the famous guitarist, who has decided to chime in about vaccines. And he's saying that he will not play venues that discriminate against people who ask and verify if they've had a vaccine for the COVID. Apparently, Eric Clapton had some kind of a bad reaction to the AstraZeneca vaccine. And his quote is, there was, quote, disastrous side effects. And he was talking about that he has this thing called peripheral neuropathy, whatever that is. And he was saying like, oh, it caused my arms to freeze up. I don't know if I can play guitar anymore. And it was all caused by that nasty little AstraZeneca vaccine. Well, I did a little bit of research on peripheral neuropathy, and it turns out the causes of that are excessive alcohol, drugs, liver disease, even cancer, which, he looks like he might have something, but I don't know. But anyways, there are consequences, Eric Clapton, for your excessive alcohol and drug use over the many, many decades, including heroin. Ladies and gentlemen, heroin. So there are consequences for bad decisions in life. And he's blaming the bad effects that he had after the vaccine, on the vaccine itself, rather than his bad lifestyle choices over many years. So there are consequences, Eric Clapton, for that. And, his buddy, Van Morrison, who I thought was American, turns out he's Northern Irish. He's, like of the same belief. Oh, these vaccines, they're a hoax and they cause trouble and whatever. And basically, you're spreading bad science. The vaccines work. There's, like 1 out of 100 million people has a problem, and you happen to be one of them. And it wasn't because of the vaccine. It was because you were a fucking drug addict and a fucking junkie for many decades. And you admit that, and, it's all over your biographies and everything. And apparently, you went to rehab a whole bunch of times, and maybe you're not on drugs anymore. Personally, I would rather you be on drugs and just keep your mouth shut about things you don't know about. Like, play your little guitar. Don't chime in about, scientific things that are going to cause other people problems. And when I went to Eric Clapton's Wikipedia page, it says in the 70s he was a drug and alcohol addiction on heroin. 79, he drank heavily. Then he became a Christian in 1979, apparently, ladies and gentlemen. And then he went to rehab in 1982, and he was so drunk that he had to be carried into rehab. And, the rehab apparently didn't work because he had to go back in 1987. And, speaking of rehab, Amy Winehouse, who did that song about rehab, she was so talented, and most people agree, they really like her. And all of a sudden, poof, she's gone. Look, all I'm saying is don't get too attached to Adele. That was a little comedy. Then anyways, let's read more about Eric Clapton, this, wonderful humanitarian person chiming in about vaccines. Let's see, in 1991, his son Connor was 4 years old. He fell off the 53rd floor of an apartment that he was in. Apparently, Eric Clapton was fucking the Italian model, and he was too busy to watch his kid, and the kid sadly and very tragically fell out the window. I mean, it's a horrible story. I feel really bad for that kid that he had a father like Eric Clapton who is, paying no attention to what's going on with the kid. Really a horrible story. But listen, when you want to fuck an Italian model, you kind of forget about your kid, I guess. 4 years old. The kid's name was Connor, so let's wish his memory well, regardless. But the good thing about it for Eric Clapton was he got a hit song out of the death of that child, the Tears in Heaven. Something like that. But, I imagine Eric Clapton is like, oh, my career is really in the dumps and everyone hates me because, what happened to my child, and I'll write a hit song and all of a sudden they'll love me again. And that's exactly what happened. And then, this goes back to 1976. It surfaced that Eric Clapton, turns out he wasn't that fond of immigrants and dark people in Britain. And he had a whole long rant, racist rant. I mean, the worst possible kind. Go Google that. His rant of August 5th, 1976, where Eric Clapton is, he ended it by saying, keep Britain white. And, I can't read that kind of language here. Stop Britain from becoming a black colony. Get foreigners out. Just all this horrible stuff. This is what Eric Clapton said in 1976. Your hero. And then he did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, and he blamed it all on the drugs. It wasn't really him. It was the drugs. So it wasn't him at all, ladies and gentlemen. It was the drugs. It seems kind of rich that Eric Clapton is saying, like, I'm not going to perform in venues that discriminate against people that haven't had a vaccine. So he's all preachy about discrimination, but, he's all keep Britain white, and he's calling people wogs, which is a derogatory term that I wrote it down. Americans don't know it. It means dark-skinned foreigner. So, and then after Eric Clapton in 1976 had this outburst, they even did this thing called Rock Against Racism. And that was all because of Eric Clapton's outburst. And I don't know if they still do that thing, but, it seems like it's all been forgotten for Eric Clapton, He got one of those, the CBE, the Order of the British Empire. He got that from, I think, Princess Anne. I don't know if that's the sister of the queen or the daughter, the cousin. I have no idea. We Americans, we don't, follow these things. But, he got some very prestigious government award, I imagine, for achievement in music, maybe. And I don't dispute that, he's a good guitar player. I don't think he's a genius. I don't think he's great. And all you nitwits that think like, oh, he's a genius, I'd love to see you play one chord, if you can't play anything on any musical instrument, you really don't have the right to say, oh, he's a genius. So keep your mouth shut until you really know. Honestly. Then let's a little more about Eric Clapton, this wonderful humanitarian with a dead child, racist, and a drug addict, ex-drug addict, I suppose, we think. Another thing, he supported the 2004 Hunting Act in the UK or England, which basically was in favor of killing animals for fun. Yeah, I think he said he didn't actually hunt himself, but he was in favor of wanting people to be able to hunt. And like, oh, let's just kill animals for fun. What a wonderful fucking humanitarian. Eric Clapton. Now, I did a little research here. He's worth about 120 million British pounds. He likes to buy very expensive cars. As a soloist, he hasn't had a very successful career. He's only had 4 songs in the U.S. in the top 10 as a soloist, that is. 1974, I Shot the Sheriff. I shot Ronald Reagan. I don't really know these songs. Lay Down Sally was number 3 in 1977. 1992, Tears in Heaven made it to number 2. That was, the one, about the kid that revived his career. And then he had another one, Change the World, in 1994, that he didn't write. Someone else wrote it, or a bunch of people wrote it. But that is not, like, oh my God, he's just, he had 4 hits in the U.S. Wow. In June of 2020, he claimed he was going deaf, that his hands weren't working, he has tinnitus. What's interesting is he's blaming the bad reaction on the vaccine to the vaccine itself, rather than these issues long before these vaccines were even around. And he started talking in 2016 about his peripheral neuropathy. So it's kind of rich. You're talking about in 2016 that you've got that disease or that medical problem, and now all of a sudden you're saying, oh, that's the vaccine caused that. But you had it in 2016, you fucking moron. And I kind of wonder, can Eric Clapton actually even still play the guitar? I don't even know. My hunch is that he can't, and he's just saying like, oh, I won't play in these discriminating venues anymore, because maybe he can't even play, and that's just his way that he gets to look like, oh, I'm against racism. But, I got your quote here. Fucking Saudis taking over London. Bastard wogs. Britain is becoming overcrowded, whatever. So it's kind of rich, And what I found really interesting is, why did he get the second vaccine shot, which he said he did? If he had a bad reaction the first time, where he's all of a sudden he can't use his hands or anything, why would you get the second vaccine, you fucking nitwit? Please. Oh my God. Eric Clapton's going to chime in about the vaccines. Anyways, I appreciate you watching this, and definitely get a vaccine. The chances of having a bad reaction are so minuscule. And if you care about other people, you get a vaccine, and you encourage other people to get a vaccine, because they actually work and they help. And it's people who spread bad information about vaccines, like Eric Clapton and Van Morrison, that are the cause of all the trouble that goes around with all the COVID that is probably going to be here for the rest of all of our lives. So don't listen to Eric Clapton. Listen to me. Yeah, I know I'm nasty and everything, but I'm telling you the truth, okay? So anyways, remember, there are consequences for bad life decisions, Eric Clapton, and you made lots of them. And there are consequences, and you're an old man now, and I don't think you have very much longer to go. I mean, you look awful. I saw some picture of you, and, it really wasn't the vaccine. Maybe it was the decades and decades of heroin and drug use and alcohol poisoning. Maybe it had something to do with that. So anyways, again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you hate this, give it a thumbs down here someplace. And write all your hate comments. I enjoy them. I love them. And I won't delete any of them unless they violate the YouTube policy about threatening. But put any kind of hate comments you like down there. I love them. Thank you very much.